Welcome back to the Blackhouse. You're on air with Eddie and Nani, and we've got our social media superstar on Keo, and I'm doing a Vlad impersonation by staying off camera. Don't you do that to me, girl.
So Leah, we'll conquer the stage fright at some time.
Yeah, I'll get over it, but I mean, not right now.
Welcome back, Leah.
Thank you.
So we're back.
It seems like it's been a while since we've been sitting all in the studio together, huh?
From outer space.
Oh, it's so good. Oh, hang on.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm distracted. I'm sorry, Nani.
Cut me off. That's all right.
Yeah, so we're back, y'all. We're back, y'all. We're bliggity black, y'all. Yeah, so
Welcome.
I got some announcements that I got to really rush through. I just want to rush through them right in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And these are just community announcements, and then we're just going to get right into it. So I'll speed through it. Eddie, cool?
Right. Yeah, 21 seconds.
I've got 21 seconds. All right,
21
so
seconds
there's lots of things happening, even though we're still on this level 2 walker.
Okay, slightly more than 21 seconds.
Yeah, slightly. We're still on this level 2 walker, and to be honest, it's really getting to me, like glasses, masks. Then not being able to read because you have to breathe, and then you have to wipe your glasses, and then you have to breathe again, and it's like I can't do both, right? So it's one or the other. So today I am breathing and reading. So first up, we've got this African Film Festival coming up on Wellington. The dates are the 28th to the 31st of October. That's Halloween weekend, everybody.
Yes.
And it's going to be at the Embassy Theatre in the city. And if you've been to any of these before, the African Film Festival opening is actually quite a big to-do. They have food, dancing, drumming, singing, guitars, acoustic stuff, and, all the Wellington mayor and other, high society people are there. All these people to do. Yeah, you're all there. But what we're going to tell you today, if you want to know about all the details, just go to their links to the film festival. They've got a website, a Facebook, an Instagram, and Twitter links. And we will also put those links up on our social media so you know what to look up and what's happening. I'm really excited because I did some film reviews, and they're actually putting a Tanzanian movie on. Yeah, and I'm not gonna give it away, but I actually really liked this movie because it showed the diversity of Tanzania, like as in the way women are, and also their concerns and their issues. But also what I really liked was the diversity in shade and colour and how we actually look. And I think that will be a very interesting movie to watch. Yeah. So again, that movie, the African Film Festival New Zealand, the Wellington dates are the 28th to the 31st of October. It's Halloween weekend. Yeah. So, and they're going to be at the Embassy Theatre in the city. All right, the next announcement I've got, so I'm still on my 21 seconds, I'm sure I've overdone it.
Announcement 2.
Announcement 2, the IRRS for All campaign. Now, if you're living in Wellington City Council tenancies, and a lot of our African people are in Wellington City Council housing tenancies, we have been having weekly meetings on Thursdays at the St. Thomas Centre, 200 Ridderford Street, Newtown, and that's right next to McDonald's in Newtown, at 6 p.m. every Thursday. And it's with organisers from Living Wage, Etu Union, and tenants and community members from other NGOs. Now, Wellington City Council has historically housed many refugees and migrants, African, Pacific Islanders, Māori, Asian, and Pākehā people who have been on the lower end of the socio-economic scale. And me and my son are actually Wellington City Council residents as well, and have been for many years, even before I went over to Australia. So our rents are formulated on a 70% of the land value sort of formulation, which with our housing bubble is blowing way out of proportion for a lot of people at the bottom to be able to afford. So we're asking for income-related rent subsidies for all, and that's the same as being on the Kāinga Ora system, also for those in the social housing system in Wellington City Council. So people are stressed, they're not coping with it. There's been discussions for many years, but this campaign's happening, and we're working up to our first big community meeting, which is going to be on the 16th. But if you want to get involved, or if you're in Wellington City Council housing yourselves, or you want your organising to get on the ground, on the grassroots ground level campaigning thing, please come along to the meeting on the 14th of October, 6 p.m. at the St. Thomas Centre, 200 Ridderford Street, and come in there and learn about what is how we're going about it, how we're actually doing it. Yeah. Okay. Last one. Look, I've done. It's only 3:04. I'm pretty good, man. Yeah, I'm a psych, KO, something like that. Anyway, I don't like. It's one for us actually. Yeah. This one, we've been asked. Did you know that we got invited? Okay, we've gotten an invitation. Oh. We've been invited to the party, y'all.
Oh, well to do. Fantastic.
Yeah, and that's the Auckland Africa Week, 1st to the 5th of November.
Yeah.
And that's celebrating us as one. The goal, and it's been, I've known about this campaign through Ernestina Bonsumaru, who's also on air. She's also a radio host. And she was so excited to know there were other black people doing radio. She's like, I did it. She's going, that's Liya doing that? Liya?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, Liya.
Imagine Liya talking.
And I said, yeah, and everybody else on the show's black too. You're like, what? Yeah, so she was like really excited about that. But they're finally, between the Aotearoa Africa Foundation and also Ernestina, or Tina, they've been getting this Africa Week. It was originally, I think, a language week, but I think it's kind of evolving into something bigger. So I remember when it started, and we were talking about it just back and forth. But we've been invited to participate. We might be participating from yeah, you know how. So and it's celebrating our unique vibe, culture, knowledge, people, and more. And they will be connecting with Wellington, Rotorua, Christchurch, and many other Africans around Aotearoa. And this is what it's about, right?
Let's not leave Dunedin off that list.
Let's do the link up.
Dunedin, Invercargill, they're down there.
Yeah, there's black people down south, guys.
What?
You can't forget it. Yeah,
what?
Hey?
This is like the reaction I get from black folk in the North Island when I say I grew up in the South Island. It's like the reaction that when like black people in America found out there are black people over here. They're like, wait, you have black people there?
Yeah.
New Zealand? Y'all have black folk there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, I think that is such an amazing thing. They did come up for the Africa Day that was at the Aotearoa Africa Foundation, and Tina and all that mob from Auckland did come down for the Africa Day at Parliament, and met the people that were there, all our crazy bunch, and it was really good. I was really, really happy to see that they're on that same that idea that this is New Zealand. Yeah, we have to, if we're going to get anywhere as black people in New Zealand, we have to figure out how to work together. Yes, even if we don't like each other, right? We have to figure out how to work together and make things and move things forward.
Honestly, some of the best relationships are when you're like, well, we don't like each other, but that means we know how to go around. Like we just get to it. We get it done.
Let's get this done.
Right.
So
I'm so excited to actually hear that the Auckland people are really like, let's link up. We need to, because the borders were only put there for COVID. They're not real borders, people.
It's like the internet is a vast place.
Yeah, it's a vast place. The border around Auckland isn't real. It's just for COVID. Yeah, we need to link up. Yeah. So this is really good. I'm really proud of them.
And we can't wait to be involved.
Yeah, we can't wait to be involved. I think it's going to be an awesome thing, and I don't know how that's going to look or what that's going to look like, but I think it's a really awesome thing to do. So yeah, that's all my announcements. I think.
Watch the space.
Yes.
Watch the space. Yeah, and check our
social medias.
Social medias. Yeah.
Yes, there we go. So the thing number 1 was the African Film Festival, which is at the embassy, and that's from the 28th to the 30th.
Yep.
To the 30th.
Yep.
And then thing number 2 was the
IRRS
campaign, which is on Thursdays in Newtown.
Yep.
Which is meeting, so we're trying to make sure that during these COVID times, people are not homeless.
Exactly.
And that's the big important, like the big takeaway from that one is don't be homeless in COVID. We're not doing that.
No, we're not doing that. We can't do that. And also the big takeaway for me is that because I was social housing most of my life, and also knowing how many of the African population were actually housed in these housing complexes and how it affects our community in particular. That if you don't have that income to afford those kind of rents, then affordable housing quickly becomes unaffordable. You understand? So this is a really important one. I want the leaders in our communities to take this seriously, because this is how you actually dive into community work and really supporting the people that want to put you up there and look at you and go, you're our leader because you're helping us.
As divine work goes, for like these COVID times where people are wondering where their idle hands should go, this is a very good cause.
Absolutely.
And then thing number 3 was that the Blackhouse was invited to link arms with another radio station up in Auckland.
I know.
Africa Week.
Our Afro-Polynesian whānau up north.
Yeah.
Cool.
Diaspora.
I'm looking forward to this. I'm excited.
I'm excited as well.
I'm dressed to the 9s right now. I will dress to the 10s.
150%. I might even find a good wig.
Oh, there we go. Get you one of them like big Afro wigs.
Yeah. That's the way to go.
Yeah.
So what are we doing? It's like,
Let's jump to some music.
Let's jump to some music. What we got?
Bit of music, and then we will bust into the rest of the show.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And we will start kung fu fighting, y'all.
Okay, that's like a barest of the barest of hints about the rest of the session of the show. So
my hints are fast as lightning.
Okay, so first we have Cold from I Am Solo and Blessed. And then we have Willow Grove, Where Trees Grow by Yusuf Dave.
Before we
can you say about that?
I was just simply going to say, like, I have not, I knew Solo when I was little, but I have not thought about him since. And I, spent yesterday, listening to this album, and I was just there. I was so there. I was with him in these talks. I was really, really connecting to them. So, I just, a shout out to Solo, because this is some bomb-ass-ish. We're trying to watch our squares, but it was good.
Yeah.
This is fire.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, well, with that praise, we're going to have to bust into Cold by I Am Solo and Blessed. 106.1 FM. We had some slight computer difficulties, and Willow Grove, Where Trees Grow by Yusuf Dave, got skipped over. So that was Quem Tem Joga by Drake Barbosa, Gloria Groove and Carol Conker. That's my favourite Brazilian funk song at the moment. That's been at the top. That's been one of the songs I've been listening to on repeat, and is this week's song that is better than anything Kanye West and Drake. So we'll get to Willow Grove in our next song break, I think. So but so moving on. So obviously, if you didn't pick up on the soundtrack, the sound effect at the beginning of the show, the gong. And then
welcome to Liya's dojo.
Nani's thinly veiled kung fu reference.
Thin nothing. I am challenging you, son, to a duel right here and now.
Fight scenes from Liya's life.
Welcome. This is This is our ode to combat. Ode to combat. That's
all right. Yeah.
So kung fu fight scenes from Liya's life.
So here's the long and short of it. I spent many years being a big fan of what they call Shonen Jump anime, which is a type of comic anime cartoon from Japan, specialized in appealing to young boys about fighting. And there is no New Zealand Shonen Jump comic, not to my knowledge anyway. But I realized when I was listening to Liya talk about some of her experiences, you know, like growing up in like, you know, the rural New Zealand, you know, like the hardcore end of New Zealand, that I was just like sitting there listening to some of your fight stories being like, I want this kung fu I need this. I need some Wu-Tang Clan sound effects going on in the background. I need this to be well directed because these stories are fire. Like, I'm so ready to hear everything that you have to say about like street fight, Liya, life and kung fu.
There's so many stories.
Right?
It's like, but like the really funny thing, like you just said there was, like I don't actually remember it being an actual Kiwi thing. It was very much the fact that I blended into the Tongan population or, you know, any other Pacific Island population, and it was a Tongan thing. Like the Tongan guys and were really into watching kung fu movies. And Bruce Lee. And we had Saturdays and Sundays where you just did marathons of well, there was no YouTube or internet in those days, so you'd have every Sunday there would be
a VHS
Monkey.
Yeah.
Right, and it was very much a part of it. But the funny thing was
the nature of Monkey was.
Yeah, and the kung fu. That's
what is Monkey? Just as a
monkey magic.
No. I know what I've heard of Monkey. Like I had a lecturer in uni who like told us the story of Monkey. But what for the listeners at home? What was Monkey?
Okay. Well, the nature of Monkey was in fact irrepressible. This is the first and most important central thing.
Yeah.
Do you want to take it?
Well, like the what I'm talking about is the television. It was a television series that played every Sunday.
Yes.
And basically it was about Monkey and his friends and their gods, like the demigods.
Yeah.
And Monkey was the real mischievous, you know, like had that, what you said, irrepressible energy to do really crazy things. And sometimes
Monkey was irrepressible.
Yeah, and he would lead his other demigod friends on little adventures all over the place. Yeah. And there was always a lot of kung fu fighting and whatnot involved in these storylines. And it was a television series that went on through the late 80s. I don't know if it went into the 90s.
So many episodes. There's like hundreds, as I recall.
And also there was Kung Fu, and that was David Carradine, I think his name was. And he was a Kung Fu monk who travelled the wilderness, and his assistant was Grasshopper. Grasshopper.
Yeah.
So that was another television series and just anything Bruce Lee.
Yeah. Well, look,
Jackie Chan came in much later.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah. No. Bruce Lee is like the holy relic. He's like It's like, you know, you are from a particular culture when like your two main icons are Bruce Lee and Bob Marley. You're like, no, that you didn't think that those two would intersect so cleanly, but they really do. Like I was hearing your stories, and the thing is, I grew up kung fu obsessed completely. Like for the first like 7 years before I got into being an illustrator, I was like, I'm gonna do MMA. I'm gonna be like the best kung fu artist there ever was. I was tubby and adorable. Like you really like I've got videos of tubby, adorable, very young Nani like thinking she was the kung fu mad master.
Oh yeah,
it's so cute. But my point is, like, when I hear your stories, it's just, I'm so ready, like...
Yeah, it was really amazing how...
Well, I'm so ready because it reminds me of the time where the reason why I got into Kung Fu is because it was a part of Black culture. Like, it's something that's an unspoken Wu-Tang Clan part of Black culture, is the way that we developed a lot of like moral fiber reaching outside of white culture and white cultural moralistic things like Christianity.
Yeah.
We got introduced to Eastern philosophy, and we were like, this resonates far more than anything that's right now available to us, because our culture is gone, their culture is available. And this is what we got.
It's like so I went so I've gone through this kung fu journey as well. I got into mine when I was probably kind of 18, 19, so it's pretty recent, but
Same.
I got into it because I was listening to the Wu-Tang Clan, and that's the big one, and like Into the 36 Chambers is just, and Liquid Swords are my two my favorite albums, and they were ones that just straight up delved so heavily into kung fu and samurai movies.
Yes.
And then I read Rizz's autobiography, so Rizz kind of the de facto head of the Wu-Tang Clan.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting because that's where suddenly like it helped me. Like I said, it helped me tap into some of that Eastern philosophy that actually comes up through that. That it was like, oh, here's how this works, and it was almost interesting because he then brings it kind of full circle and then relates it back to black folk as well. So he looks at like and I think you can see it in like a lot of stuff in terms of like if you look at like say something like Samurai Champloo, where like the story of Samurai Champloo is a black story. Like it's like you could set that in a city America. And the same things.
Nothing changes. Absolutely zero things change. Like I remember at one point even being like, oh man, like my dream is to make and somebody else can have this because I'm tired and I'm old and I don't want to do it. But like is to make a sort of parody of hip hop and black music culture from the Warring States period. So like Japanese historical Warring States period, but we need to know that all of like Tupac and like that era of like people, they were fighting for the mic, all of them, and it was a free for all. But it was such a huge part of black culture was kung fu. But that Eastern Western divide, we don't like. Most of us don't know that that's just the case. You sitting over there being like, I got to watch these kung fu films, like, you know,
as they came
out in stereo, in person sometimes because I was just watching these fights go down.
Yeah, I mean, it was strange because like I couldn't say that, like I said, I didn't think of it as being part of the Kiwi culture. It's something that came with, you know, the Tongan people that I was hanging out. Like my oldest son's father is Tongan, and he was obsessed with, like, him and all his brothers were obsessed. And you know, like there's history here of how the young guys used to fight. I'm not going to go into too much detail because I'm on air.
Ain't gonna blast anybody.
Yeah, I don't want to blast anybody. But you know, like the fights were spectacular. They weren't just like somebody pushing and shoving and they're on the ground. They were like people would jump in the air and stuff.
It was that string theater.
And you know, like sometimes you'd go to these socials. I remember in Auckland we'd go to socials, and sometimes we'd just go to the socials to watch the fights, not the social. And like guys would come out all dressed up. And it was quite normal to go home with your clothes absolutely ripped to shreds.
I am just loving this image of like, you know, some big Tongan guy coming out in like a freaking zoot suit, like levels of like bright, beautiful suit, and then going straight into a kung fu movie. I'm just like, I would trade your eyeballs like in a minute.
Yeah, it was, I don't know, like it's nothing like that now, but I mean the 80s were a very different time in New Zealand, and we didn't have this, like it was before all this, I don't know what you're going, putting cotton wool around people, you know, and like we can't push onto that cotton wool because you might, you know, Princess and the Pea thing. It was really, really different. And I've lived through this change of our culture in New Zealand, but you know, there was, you know, it had its negatives, but yeah, you can't really not say, if you'd had if we had cell phones in those days, you would want to film those things and they would be going viral.
It's a part of the New Zealand history at this point.
Yeah, it is. It's like an unspoken history because, you know, like it's like New Zealand was so, you had what was happening in you know, the Dawn Raids and what was happening around Grey Lynn and around South Auckland. And then you could have people living in another part of Auckland that are completely unaware of what was going on just a few suburbs away.
I mean, at one point, there's a beautiful book about Black American history, called The Warmth of Other Suns. And one of the things they do is they reframe a lot of the exodus of black slaves as a mass migration so that it's seen with the dignity that it needs to have. And I feel like that kind of history where you come back to a history where you lived through it and you bring it that level of prestige where you're like, it's not that we want this to still be the case, but we definitely want it on record with the prestige it deserves. So like, I am like, so that's what I'm like, was trying to like be like, okay, Leah, give me these kung fu stories. Tell me about that one time you were on the front of a truck. What is it?
Oh, yeah. Well, okay. All right. So, in the late 80s, I got right into bodybuilding with my partner at that time, who was a very huge guy, very big man. And
those big arms, right?
Yeah, and he was tall and thick, but he was very strong.
Yes.
Yeah. And basically built himself up to being, he went from about 70k to about 120k of sheer muscle. We were doing bodybuilding together. And, you know, he got the job as security, even though, you know, like we were living pretty much on the very, very periphery of normal social life because of, you know, the lack of income and the inability to find work in that particular region of the country. So, he got this job as a security guard, and I remember one day I had a job, part-time job as a bartender, and I remember we came out to get into the car, and basically there was
some druggies.
There was some very drunk, very drugged up people sitting in our car telling us we had the wrong car. And I was like, oh no. You don't want to be saying that to this guy, because this guy watches way too much kung fu. He's very, very big, and you don't want to. And they were adamant it was their car. It wasn't. He literally dragged out 5 men, and it was like watching something on a movie. Some Bruce Lee. He just kung fu, finished them completely. There was just bodies everywhere, and then he goes, right, we're going now. And that was it.
Not even that's one of the things that like actually really changed. Like you know, when you come into this world and like you're a minority, right? Like so you were already faced up with all of this like intense, you know, you're set up to fail. But then you get this kung fu movie introduced to you, and like you're like, the odds are against me, and then you're like, oh, the odds are against me, huh? Hold on, this is my favorite scenario. The odds are against me. I'm about to show them what the odds have to what the gods have to say to the odds.
And like the other thing about that was that it actually came up on one of the meetings that we had. We were just talking about, you know, like the woman were asking me what was it like growing up in New Zealand, being African in an environment where you're surrounded by Tongans and Samoans and other Pacific Islanders and Maori and Fijians and everybody else. And I was like, well, if you didn't know how to fight, you're gone. You're gone. You couldn't, if you didn't know how to stand up to bullies, if you didn't know how to stand your ground, you were gone. You were gone. And that was the way it was. So, I mean, I understand. Like it's just like that.
And that's the way it is.
Yeah. And like today, we're really aware of how much that actually feeds into PTSD, it feeds into mental health issues, anxiety, whatnot, because young kids don't know how to deal with confrontation. No. They don't know how to deal with bullies. No. They don't know how to. They're not being taught these basics that, you know, like standing your ground sometimes is what you have to do. Yeah. Sometimes it is. And sometimes there is a space to negotiate. There is a space to have a conversation.
And there should be. And in fact, when you know how to stand your ground, you can make that space to negotiate in a way that you cannot if like there was this there was like a particularly toxic masculine guy on the internet who was like touting about how like, no, I as a man am simply choosing to be, you know, harmless. Like he was trying to basically say, if you are actually harmless, you're not a real man. You're simply weak, and you're not actually, you know, you're not. It's not that you're strong enough to choose passivity. You are just forced there. And I remember thinking like, that's so toxic, but I actually get it. Like when you're strong enough to actively choose to like the soft path, that comes with strength and only strength. Only strength will let you choose to be kind.
And you know, like I think I told you this afternoon how like one of, you know, okay, without going into all the details of my personal life with other people of the other gender. I did have friends that were teaching me you know, dragon style kung fu and TKD and just regular. That was like, everybody's got to know that. It's so cool when a girl does it too. You know, and these were like the skill sets that I was gaining for the life and the environment that I was in. This is what was important. I don't know how important it is today to young women. Is it? Do you think it is?
I really do.
I wouldn't necessarily agree. I think. Because I was in a boarding school. I was in an all boys boarding school, and like one of the things that did come up was the use of physical punishment from older boys to younger boys, but often use of violence in those spaces as well. And it's one of those things that I think, like, I had a cousin who was probably 5 years older than me who'd gone through the same school, and it was almost in that kind of space where it was in that 5 years where you saw like the crackdown on violence and the crackdown on the physical aspect, and like I call it the tail end of it. But I think there's something to be said about the disciplinary aspects of something like martial arts. But I also think I don't know. It's almost one of those points. I don't know if
I think there's this thing where one of the things that I was always told is that everyone can beat somebody up. Everyone can grab a baseball bat. Everyone can hurt someone.
Yeah.
Kung Fu, if you're actually looking into it, if you meaningfully care at all about it, is about self-defense.
Self-defense,
and it's about protecting. Everyone can hurt someone. Bullying is a different thing.
Yeah.
Kung Fu is about facing an opposition with grace and with elegance.
I suppose the question from that there though is that, like, at its core, like, there's, and I think that's the big thing that a lot of Kung Fu movies emphasize, is the spiritual aspect of it.
Yeah.
But isn't the kind of issue that comes up with that people aren't necessarily taking that away from it. Because what you're getting is suddenly, if you're getting the ability, yes, like, at its core, it's the spiritual. There is a lot to it, but at its also core, you're also learning more effective ways to hurt people.
Yeah, well, I think there is that aspect, and that when you said spiritual, I think a lot of that about the spiritual thing is about, you know, people as individuals and the own way that they deal with the world in general. I mean, another thing I've always said to people is that I was a netball player and a basketball player most of my life. I was defense. I play a good defense. Attack players, and if you look at netball players, attack players are much more aggressive individual personality type. If you're playing attack, you're attacking. You are forcing something to get to a goal at the end of a court. If you're defense, your thing is to stop whatever's coming from coming there. Yeah. And I think when you approach, and I've always seemed to have approached life from a defense position. So anything that I learned was learnt to actually protect myself, not to attack other people. But I can't say the same for other people, because not everybody out there is an attack person and not everybody out there is a defense person. You know what I mean? And I've noticed that's been quite a consistent thing. I'm not a person that goes and starts things, but I will meet your energy. I will meet your energy, because that's, you know, like, if you're going to lobby that ball, I could slam that ball back down on your face. Right? Because that's your job as a goalkeeper. Your job is to not let that person get the goal. Your job is to keep that ball at the other end of the court. Our goal end. You know, that's your role, you know.
I do. I also think that there's a certain amount of, when you leave too much room for someone to not see you as a meaningful opponent, they just see you as the grass they walk on. They don't see you. They don't see you as a human. They don't see you as... And also, they don't respect when you're not hurting them. Like, when you show somebody, I have the capacity to defend myself. I'm choosing not to. What that means is that that's a sign that you're like, that is an offering of friendship. And I think that that's one of the things that I really did learn from Kung Fu. I was constantly, as a young, chubby black girl, 6 foot tall, being confronted by people. And it wasn't until Kung Fu and Kung Fu stories came into my life, and I really started internalizing that way, that I started to be like, it's not when I need to conflict, it's when conflict comes to me, which is inevitable. Even if it's physical or mental, it will come.
And I think also, like, martial arts, boxing, I was into boxing for a long time. I think even bodybuilding, if you're building muscle or anything like that, it's so, I don't know what's happened to these sports and women. It's like I feel like it was very, very popular in the 90s and in the late 80s, and then the popularity of it has drifted off. I don't know if it's just me noticing that or other people noticing that, but I personally think it's very important for young women's kind of, it's not just because we're very, like, today you guys have all this social media and stuff, and people are looking at you on the internet, and it's all about how you look on the outside and what you're projecting, like that conversation we had. But there's also something that these sports bring to you on the inside. They do. And that you are strong. You're like, the strong doesn't have to be a facade of, I'm presenting this, it's very on the outside. You've got to have that thing on the inside as well. And that's why I think, like, if I'd had daughters, oh, hell yeah, they would be TKD, Kung Fu, something. Yeah, definitely. They'd be doing boxing. Yeah.
Like, the hardest confrontations I've ever had to go through have always been when I love the other person. Like, I have never been able, like, when it's some random on the street, like, I will smack you right then and there if you mess with me. And I don't even feel any guilt. But, like, the ones that have always really messed me up, like, and this is one thing there's another style of Kung Fu, or, like, martial arts called Aikido, which literally translates, Aikido, like, love, energy, way, which is to pull something close enough so that it can't hurt you, and then to give that energy back. Yeah. And that is the Kung Fu that I feel like right now is the most needed, like in the modern age, is not just smack a guy, not just meet you in your confrontation.
And I mean, like, you
to
like
pull close, to understand, and to become as one.
Because what I see happening now, and I've noticed it a lot as a person of my age, is that the overt violence isn't here like it was in the 80s. I mean, I grew up around street gangs. Yeah. King Cobras, Black Power. Well, Black Power and Mongol Mob are actually organised gangs, but the street gangs were the Pacific Island gangs that were in Auckland at the time, like Tonga Mafia and whatnot. So that overt violence is not as visible as it was then. But what you've got is this passive aggressiveness, which can be just as violent and just as confronting, and because you don't really know where it's coming from, but you're being attacked. And I think that also sports like Kung Fu and the discipline that it gets and the strength that you get inside of it, especially for young people and young women in particular, that this is just as needed today. Right? Like I would love to be rolling around in the leaves and the flowers and everything, but here's the thing:
watching kids setting sunsets and kissing kittens.
Yeah, I've grown up like the Forrest Gump black girl of the history of New Zealand. I've seen everything, man. I've been everywhere, man. I've seen everything, man. It's like you can't get rid of those experiences.
No,
those experiences are real. And I think it's time for a song break. What do you reckon, bro?
Let's come back to this with one more song. Let's go Willow Grove, and then we'll come back to this conversation. All right. So this is hopefully now Willow Grove by Yusuf Dave, and then we'll go Willow Grove by Yusuf Dave. And that was Willow Grove, Where Trees Grow by Yusuf Dave. Welcome back to the Blackhouse on 106.1 FM.
You got it right this time, boy.
I did get it right.
I've been listening the last few weeks of you struggling over, tripping over your tongue.
Yeah, no.
Welcome back to the dojo.
It's the headaches.
It's the jab. It's the jab.
I guess picking up just something I've been thinking of, like, I find really interesting, and I guess, like you said, in terms of the love of Kung Fu movies from, say, a Tongan Islanders, Pacific Islanders.
Well, I was living with Islanders, yeah.
But then obviously that being one of those connections, it's almost one of those points you look at those kind of connection pathways globally, and you look at those same things, because it really reminds me of, like, reading up about, the urbanization of Maori. And it's one of those points where, similarly to, like, when the urbanization of black folk in the States, like, you could see, like, the urbanization of black people in the States led to stuff like the Harlem Renaissance. And you can see, similarly in, like, Maori communities, there was almost that kind of cultural renaissance in terms of music and, like...
the reggae thing.
And then, but then that's what I'm thinking, is that sounds really similar in terms of, it's like another... I guess connection almost. It's like here is the similar kind of pattern where people of colour in very different parts of the world have very similar kind of cultural trends. And
I mean, like when Bob Marley came to New Zealand, I was there. If you ever see the footage, you'll see that they had to let in Black Power in one entrance and the Mongol Mob in another entrance.
Wow.
And there's a big flag in the middle of the Western Springs concert, and it says Black Power, and I'm standing there under there
Oh,
somewhere.
wow.
And I'm only 12.
And that's really interesting because, like, if you look at Jamaica during that kind of time period, like, similarly, what you had is he did, I think it was called like the One Love concert in Jamaica, and that was essentially this period of intense political violence, where essentially what would happen, Jamaican politicians would pay off gang leaders. And there was two gang leaders. I can't remember the name. I know there's a book written about them that changes the names, but has those two figures, and what they're called Papa Low and Shota Sheriff.
Right.
But the thing is that you had those two figures, and the same thing, you had Marley's concert was the point where he brought them both up on stage.
I remember that.
Then he brought
and he got them to shake hands or something.
He got them to shake hands, and he brought the two leaders of the two like competing Jamaican political parties, had them shake hands on stage. And it's one of those points where I find that interesting. Again, like similarly, there's the same mapping and at the same point of this is like a common space. Yeah, because what was crazy about that, because I at that age, I was still at, let me think, I don't think I'd started high school yet. I might have been in intermediate or just started high school. And, me and all my friends from Waterview, and the fact that you could get into a concert and, like, the price was like $8 or something to get in. It was crazy. And you could go to a concert by yourself as children then, because this was 78, 79. And, like, you don't see that anymore, and the security wasn't for us. The security was because of all of the fact that they've got two of these major gangs in New Zealand coming, and the fact that everybody came together, literally at that concert. And there's you wouldn't be able to see me because I was surrounded by other people with massive afros, but that's where I was standing. That's a question. What was that like, being a black person in that space? Because obviously there's that point of like you can see the impact of Mali globally, and especially in Pacific communities. But you sit there and go, what was it like actually as a black person being in that space?
It was, okay, first of all, like, because my mum's Pākehā and her partner is Pākehā. Like, this is getting into like, this is going to be a long one, isn't it?
Okay, so we've got 3 minutes.
3 minutes, okay.
Episode
well, like, here's the thing. When I was growing up, Māori people had massive afros, and they looked like black people to me. They looked like black people that you see, but they were Māori, and also Pacific Islanders had big afros. I mean, if you look at that television show of Panther, Polynesian Panthers, the fact that they had big afros, like the afros were tighter and bigger back then. And also people were a lot darker back then. It was the 70s. I think our lives have become more indoors, and everybody's light, and there's a lot more miscegenation now than there was then, because these were the first groups coming in, and they were the children of the first ones that came back after the war, and islanders that came after the war. So I was growing up with that first generation of people of colour here.
I do kind of wonder whether or not, this is a term I got from the internet, but I wonder whether or not it really is just the swirling, like people of colour mixing with people who are European, enough that we now just have more people who are mixed race than we have people who were 100% anything.
Yeah, I mean, like, some people... I don't know. I just think everybody was darker back then. Everybody was just blacker back then. I don't know what's happened now.
That's the photographs. When we went to coloured photographs, they took the melanin out of us and then they did the photograph.
And being African and all that, I mean, I didn't have much to compare myself to. So, like, everywhere I went, I was the only one. So, like, it's like I was born a generation before I should have been born, because now you've got a millennial generation that is growing up with other millennials that are also black.
I think that it's super special, actually, the place that you occupy. I think that you are primed to be a leader because of what you have, like, because you were, in a way, like you were the oldest I know in New Zealand black person. Meaningfully. So you got to watch everything. So, like, I actually get to see this from you, which is why I was like, tell me your kung fu. I'm ready to train in Lia's dojo. Lia's dojo.
Where's our gong?
I can't. Give me the. Okay, we'll just do it while I'm just nattering through the outro. Thank you for listening. That's probably the time we have for today. Thank you for listening to the Blackhouse this week. You've been listening to, I can't find the gong.
No, you have to.
There it is. Okay, well, thank you for listening to the Blackhouse. This has been Eddie, Nani, and Liya. Oh, it's good to be back. It's good for us all to be back.
Yeah.
We're back and we're black, y'all.
We're back and we're black, y'all.
Thank you for listening to the Blackhouse 106.1 FM Wellington Access Radio. This has been your Saturday afternoon, and to close out, alright, we'll see you all next week. Bye.